Yo, what is up everybody, this is Sewell. So in today's video, let's continue what we have left from the last video regarding best marchers on field. So I will share you guys what can be the best 3 marchers for each troop type, and then later on, we're gonna be explaining more detailed questions on certain commanders, such as why Nevsky is out of meta, whether Wallace is necessary, and how does Shajar look in this meta. So trust me, this video has tons of information that you don't want to miss. So if you want to directly jump into the topic you're interested, you can use the timestamp. Okay, so let's go by order. Caps goes first. 3 caps lineup actually depends on whether you have arch or delta. If you only have wedge, then you can run 3 wedge. So I would do Nevsky Arthur, Huo William, and then Joanne Bailey. You'll keep in mind, if you're running Nevsky in this meta, only Arthur will be able to carry Nevsky. All the other pair with Nevsky is really weak in this meta, especially Nevsky Joanne, which will be mentioned later on. Well, if you do have a set of arch or delta, then the 3 caps can be Ashur Philip, Huo William, Joanne Bailey. You can notice each one of them has 1 random skill, because the idea is, like I mentioned in last video, those are the good features you want your each march to have, like at least 1. But again, that is based on a range of meta commanders in terms of healthy raw stats and normal factor. So obviously you can't use an old commander just because they have some of these features. Well, the problem regarding Nevsky, you can jump into this timestamp. Alright, then 3 infantry. 3 infantry, I will suggest Ragnar Alex, Guan Scipio, and then Ashur Philip or Wallace. Again, have I looked at good features, like each one of those marches are AoE primary march with random skill. And also all of them have relatively higher tankiness than regular marches and some skill damage reduction. So 3 infantries are honestly the strongest troop type, like way better than 3 cav and 3 archers. And what is so scary is the next 10th generation troop type will be infantry. If you're interested in Wallace, you can jump into here. Alright, lastly we have archers. 3 archers depends on whether you bring Shajar. With Shajar, you can do Zhuge Philip, Ashur Herman, and then Shajar YSG. Without Shajar, there are actually so many ways to pair, but basically all of them are just combinations. But the key about 3 archers is eventually depending on how many level 5 iconic shoes you have, because you always want to balance the marching speed between those 3 archers. So with or without Shajar actually depends on if you are worried about your surviving ability, which often happens to some of the small kingdoms. So regarding Shajar, you can jump into this timestamp. So let's now talk about something on certain commanders more specifically. First one, why is Nevsky out of meta? To be honest, this is the thing I see the most, and also something that people are not willing to believe. But anyway, the fact is, Nevsky just doesn't fit in the current field meta. Well, the more hit and run style you play, the more useless Nevsky is going to be. Because eventually, Nevsky is mechanically strong only if he's standing there to deal damage. Notice the 4th skill on Nevsky, it only gives you 20% constantly. The rest of 35% increasing the skill damage of the secondary on this pair. So if Nevsky is not moving or enemy is not moving, that is great, which means that 35% is guaranteed to happen. But if you play a lot hit and run or an enemy moves so frequently, that means that 35% is just so easy to lose. Cause like, as long as you're pulling away your troops during those 4 seconds, the second ulti from Joanne is guaranteed to not have that 30% skill damage increase. And I think about this pair, Nevsky Joanne, initially you need more time to throw out that second ultimate from Joanne. And now that skill damage increase is so easy to lose. Plus the fact that this march doesn't have any random skill, and it's a regular rage knee single damage primary pair. And the worst part is, this march is usually faster than all the other marches, which means most of the cases where you are swarming a target, Nevsky Joanne will just go directly into the enemy boss and gets deleted instantly. So combine all the above reasons, I'm not sure if Nevsky really gets nerfed, but the fact is, in today's open field meta, Nevsky is not as good as he was. Especially the pair of Nevsky Joanne. Cause like, think about the good features we're looking for, this particular pair literally doesn't have any one of them. And then need extra time to throw out the second ulti. But on the other hand, if you have a look at the skill set from Huo, who has shorter rage and a huge skill damage increase during the first 15 seconds, that is literally fitting so well to today's open field meta. So eventually, whether Nevsky is out of meta, actually depends on how you and your enemy play. But the fact is, more meta commanders are designed to have those instant proc mechanics. So somehow the meta just switched into a favor of hit and run. Well, if you think about Nevsky being secondary, honestly, Belly Prime could be a better choice. Because Belly has a random skill, and it has debuff when you're swarming a target, which works as long as you touch your enemy. So somehow, even Belly Prime is better than Nevsky when it comes to being secondary of a field march in today's open field. That's why for 2 cavalries, with wedge only, I would recommend Huo Arthur and then Joan Bailey, like without Nevsky. Well, if you still have faith on Nevsky, then the 2 caps I suggest will be Nevsky Arthur and then Huo Joan. Because honestly, Arthur is the only commander that can carry Nevsky in this meta, just because he's the latest, strongest commander. So pairing like that will give equally strong reports, but keep in mind, both of those marchers don't have any random skill. They all rely on ultimates. Next, we have infantry. It's basically between Wallace Liu Che or Liu Che Alex. I mean, again, have a look at the good features. You will notice how OP Liu Che is if comparing to any other commanders. So Liu Che, single commander, has 2 random skill and more rage mechanics. So no matter he's being primary or secondary, no matter who he pair with, the march of Liu Che will always be perfectly fitting to today's open field. But the biggest advantage on Liu Che is actually being primary, dealing 5 target AoE. Because honestly, in this meta, you always want to throw out your AoE as soon as possible. However, Wallace Liu Che, a regular rage need single damage primary commander. And some people are asking, how about Liu Che primary and then Wallace going secondary? Now I have to explain how exactly Wallace is increasing that smite damage from his 3rd skill. So let's say Liu Che is being primary and then his AoE hits 5 targets. The damage output is going to be the original factor times the number of targets and then times 0.5. That is 5,625. Now if we consider Wallace's 3rd skill is working, the increase from that specific skill is only working on a target you're attacking. So it's not going to work on those targets that are hit from your AoE. So technically it's going to be the damage on the target that you're attacking to times the increase, and then plus the 4 targets from AoE damage, which gives you 6,075. So if you compare after and before, it's only 8% of increase in this case. So in conclusion, we can say the more targets that your Liu Che AoE is hitting, the less value of increase that Wallace's 3rd skill is going to give you. Or we can see in this way, since Liu Che is being primary already, and Wallace is not increasing that AoE as much as people thought, plus Wallace doesn't have random skill, why don't we just use Liu Che Philip or Liu Che Alex instead? It's like replacing an instant proc to a single damage secondary ulti, which fits more to the meta, right? So the idea is like, it's not like Wallace is not strong, but there are so many better commanders, like Ragnar, Philip, Arthur. If you think about the diversity or the pairs they can make, it's way more than Wallace can do. Because eventually, Wallace is only working on smite damage, right? It's like, there's only one path you can go. And also, if you're considering the next generation of infantry, if you don't have Wallace yet, you should not invest them. So regarding archers, the question I see the most is Philip necessary to archers? And a concern about Shajar. Well, regarding Philip, the question can be converting to how many level 5 iconic shoes do you have on your archer pair? If you're only running 1 archer, then Philip is definitely not unnecessary. Because obviously, Zhuge Herman is still the best archer. As for 2 archers, given the fact that Zhuge Herman, Ashur YSG have the same marching speed, if you do have 2 level 5 iconic shoes on archer, then Philip is not really a must. But if you only have 1 iconic level 5 shoes, then you need Philip. Like you can do Zhuge Philip with the level 5 shoes, and then the other march can be Ashur Herman. So in this way, both of them are AoE primary march with a random skill. And I see a lot of people asking the synergy between Ashur and Philip. But I would say it's better than nothing, but it's not really a big deal. Because first of all, Ashur is not a type of commander that is being too OP, like Liu Che, Zhuge. Because Ashur seems kind of normal. And regarding his 5 target AoE ability, sometimes can be overrated. Because in fact, it's 1,000 single damage plus 1,500 times 5 times 0.5, which gives you 4,750. It's not really equal to a 5 target AoE from 2,500 factor. Also consider the raw stats and the skill damage increase on Ashur is not really one of the top. But most importantly, the synergy between Ashur and Philip is actually contradicting to today's open field. Because obviously, the poking a hit and run makes you harder to maintain your skill cycle. But now you are looking for or relying on a synergy that is based on your skill cycle. So it's like the same idea of you are counting on Nevsky 4th skill can cover the second ulti from Joan, which only happens in testing and theory. But when it comes to real fight, all of those synergy will just be gone. Also, that is something I mentioned hundreds of times. The point of Philip is never his recasting or his buff, but his second, third, fourth skill are being perfectly matching to today's open field. And that's the real value on this commander. What if now if you think about what to pair with Philip, like the top 3 commander is the way to go, right? Arthur, Liu Ce, Zhuge. You put Philip behind one of them, that's the way to go. Just like what I mentioned in the very first day. You can't treat Philip as a buff commander, and you can't just rely on the recasting. But what you really need is just to pair with one of the OP AoE commanders. Alright, lastly we have Shajar. Honestly, this commander doesn't belong to any meta. So let's talk about Shajar being primary at first. Technically, she can't be 2 archers, because we've just mentioned damage factor from Ashur. And regardless of raw stats and damage increase, that is way beyond the 2800 factor from Shajar. And not to mention, Shajar doesn't have any damage increase. Or we can ask you in this way. Considering the good features, what exactly does the Shajar primary march have? Because technically, Ashur commanders usually don't have that much of random skill. So if it's Shajar being primary, most of cases, it will just be a regular rage need single damage primary march without random skill. So obviously to this meta, it doesn't have any advantage. Well, regarding the true damage with Shajar being secondary, we can say so far, true damage has nothing to do with open field. If you're comparing the 2 new systems from other troop types, like combo from cav and smite damage from infantry, both of them have their own center carry, like Arthur and Liu Ce, an AoE commander with damage increase. Not to mention both of them have more than 1 random skill. But you think about true damage from Archer, no matter it's Shajar or CY, none of them has a tiny damage increase on open field. That's why so far we can say the system of true damage on open field is like 0% developed. So I would say the 10th generation of Archer is the most important generation, which directly decides how Archer will go. If it's trash again, we have 2 consecutive generations of Archers are being trash. But personally, I still think they are going to be dealing true damage. Because the true damage system on open field does need a center carry as much as Arthur and Liu Ce. Like at least an AoE commander with healing bonus. So I would say 40% of healing bonus and then dealing 3 target AoE. It would be better if he has very high attack. Because nowadays the meta shifting is like forcing each troop type to have 2 marches. One is doing the old shit, the other one is doing the new shit. Like for cavalry, one is doing skill damage, the other one is doing combo. And then for infantry, one is doing skill damage, the other one is doing smite damage. So there is no reason for archers to still stick to 2 skill damage march, unless the next generation of archer is going back on skill damage to replace Archer YSG. But that's somehow literally admitting that the next generation of archer is wasted. So that's everything I want to mention in this video. Thank you for watching. Bye. Subscribe and like the video. Thank you for support.